Thomas Alva Edison is remembered as the man who lit up the world, but his story is far stranger than the history books tell. Behind the smiling inventor with a glowing bulb was a restless genius who barely slept, betrayed friends, electrocuted animals, and worked himself to exhaustion, chasing the next big breakthrough. He wasn't just a scientist, he was a showman, a businessman, and sometimes a ruthless rival. From being called addled as a child to becoming one of the most powerful men in America, Edison's life was anything but ordinary. So, was Edison truly a visionary genius or a cunning opportunist who stole the spotlight? In this video, we will uncover the bizarre, brilliant, and controversial life of Thomas Alva Edison, revealing the man behind the myth and how his obsession with innovation changed the world forever. Let's dive in. Thomas Alva Edison was born on February 11, 1847, in Milan, Ohio, into a family that knew what it meant to run. His ancestors were British loyalists who fled New Jersey during the American Revolution, and his father Sam had to escape Canada after a failed rebellion in the 1830s. The Edison family finally settled in Ohio, where young Al would be born as the youngest of 7 children. School lasted exactly 3 months. His teacher called him addled and said his brain was scrambled, so his mother Nancy, a former teacher herself, pulled him out and took over his education at home. She taught him to read, introduced him to science books, and let his curiosity explode. By age 10, Edison had built a chemistry lab in their basement after the family moved to Port Huron, Michigan. He labeled all his bottles poison to keep people away from his experiments. At 12, Edison took a job selling newspapers on the Grand Trunk Railroad between Port Huron and Detroit. But he didn't just sell papers. He set up a complete chemistry laboratory in the baggage car and started printing his own newspaper called the Grand Trunk Herald, making it the first newspaper ever published on a moving train. He was pulling in about $10 a day, which was serious money for a kid in the 1860s. The operation worked perfectly until an accidental fire in the baggage car forced him to shut everything down. Around this same time, Edison lost almost all his hearing. The exact cause remains disputed. Some blamed scarlet fever from childhood, while others pointed to a conductor allegedly boxing his ears after the fire. Edison himself claimed a railroad employee grabbed him by the ears to lift him onto a moving train, damaging his eardrums permanently. Instead of viewing it as a disability, Edison treated it as an advantage. He said it helped him concentrate by blocking out distractions, though it also made him more isolated and awkward socially. In 1862, Edison witnessed a 3-year-old boy wandering onto train tracks directly in the path of a rolling boxcar. He jumped down and pulled the child to safety just in time. The boy's father, J.U. Mackenzie, was the station agent and overwhelmed with gratitude. He offered to teach Edison railroad telegraphy as a reward, and Edison accepted immediately. That winter, he took his first job as a telegraph operator in Port Huron at just 15 years old. He had just stumbled into the technology that would launch his entire career as an inventor. Edison had learned to send messages through wires, but he was about to discover something more valuable: how to turn those wires into gold and build an empire that would change the world forever. Between 1863 and 1867, Edison bounced from city to city, taking telegraph jobs wherever he could find them. By 1868, he landed in Boston working for Western Union, but he spent more time tinkering with inventions than actually doing his job. In January 1869, Edison quit to become a full-time inventor at 22 years old with no safety net. His first patented invention was an electric vote recorder, and politicians rejected it completely. They didn't want faster voting because slow voting gave them time to negotiate. Edison learned a brutal lesson: never waste time inventing something nobody wants to buy. From that moment forward, every invention had to solve a real problem people would pay to fix. Edison moved to New York City broke and sleeping on a cot in an office where his friend worked. When a critical machine broke down, Edison calmly fixed it and got hired on the spot. Over the next few years, he developed a quadruplex telegraph that could send 2 messages simultaneously in both directions on a single wire. When he sold the patent rights to Western Union's competitor, it triggered a legal war, but Edison had made his point. His mother died in 1871, and on Christmas Day that same year, he married 16-year-old Mary Stilwell. Their relationship was complicated because Edison loved his work more than anything else. He regularly slept at the lab and left Mary alone for days. They had 3 children, Marion, Thomas Jr., and William Leslie. Edison nicknamed the first 2 Dot and Dash after telegraph code. In 1876, Edison opened a laboratory in Menlo Park, New Jersey. This was the world's first research and development facility, an invention factory where teams worked on multiple projects simultaneously. Edison drove them hard, working 18-hour days and expecting everyone to match his pace. His method was pure brute force. Test everything until something works. In 1877, while working on telegraph technology, Edison had a realization. If sound caused vibrations that could be recorded as indentations on moving paper, then sound could be captured and replayed. He built a machine with a tinfoil-covered cylinder and spoke the words, "Mary had a little lamb," into it. The machine played his voice back, and his team stood there stunned. Edison had just invented the phonograph. Electric lighting consumed Edison's attention starting in 1878. Financiers formed the Edison Electric Light Company, giving him funding in exchange for patent rights and stock. Through 1879, his team tested thousands of materials for the filament, and most burned out within minutes. A carbonized cotton thread finally lasted over 13 hours, and later versions using bamboo lasted over 1,200 hours. On New Year's Eve, 1879, thousands showed up to see electric lights glowing at Menlo Park. The first commercial electric lighting system went live on Pearl Street in Manhattan on September 4th, 1882, initially powering just 400 lamps. Within a year, 513 customers used 10,300 lamps. Edison formed multiple companies to manufacture every component, and his lighting system spread to Paris, London, and Moscow. But just as Edison's lights were spreading across the world, a former employee with a competing vision was about to challenge everything Edison had built, and the fight would get brutal. Edison's electrical system ran on direct current, or DC. This type of current worked beautifully, but had a critical flaw. It couldn't travel more than about a mile without losing voltage. To light an entire city with DC, you needed power stations every few blocks, which was expensive and impractical. The alternative was alternating current, AC, which reversed direction dozens of times per second. Nikola Tesla, who briefly worked for Edison in 1884, had developed an AC motor and believed it was the future. When Tesla asked Edison for recognition and better pay, Edison allegedly dismissed him. Tesla quit and eventually partnered with George Westinghouse, who saw AC's potential. Westinghouse's system could transmit electricity over hundreds of miles using transformers, making it cheaper and more efficient. Edison felt betrayed and launched an aggressive campaign to convince Americans that AC was deadly. He hired engineers to conduct public demonstrations where they electrocuted animals using AC current to prove its danger. Edison's team also promoted the electric chair for executing prisoners, specifically ensuring it used AC current. The first execution by electric chair happened in 1890, and Edison's goal was clear: associate AC with death. Westinghouse and Tesla fought back with facts. The Chicago World's Fair in 1893 became the battlefield. Westinghouse underbid Edison for the contract to light the fair with 250,000 bulbs, and the AC-powered illumination dazzled millions of visitors. That same year, Westinghouse won the contract to build the hydroelectric station at Niagara Falls using AC generators. By 1889, technology evolved to combine both systems effectively, and AC became the standard for power transmission. In 1892, Edison General Electric merged with Thomson Houston to form General Electric. The new company dropped Edison's name and shifted to AC technology. Edison lost control of the electrical industry he had created. The war of currents taught Edison about the difference between being right and being relevant. He genuinely believed DC was safer, and in some ways, he was correct. But he refused to adapt when the market demanded something different, and his willingness to use fear tactics damaged his reputation. Meanwhile, Tesla became a folk hero to future generations who saw him as the misunderstood genius. The truth was more complicated. Both men were brilliant and made critical contributions, but only one was willing to evolve. Edison had lost the electrical war, but he wasn't done fighting. He turned back to earlier inventions and dove into an entirely new industry that would make him both wealthy and hated. Edison's wife, Mary, died suddenly on August 9, 1884, possibly from a brain tumor. She was only 29. 2 years later, Edison married Mina Miller, the daughter of a wealthy industrialist. Mina was educated and assertive, nothing like Mary. Edison bought a massive estate called Glenmont in West Orange, and his 3 children from his first marriage were largely excluded from this new life. Edison and Mina had 3 children of their own, and the blended family never quite blended. In 1887, Edison built a larger laboratory complex in West Orange and immediately revisited the phonograph. Competitors had developed an improved version using a wax cylinder, and when they proposed a partnership, Edison refused. He considered the phonograph his invention alone. By 1896, he launched the National Phonograph Company, targeting home entertainment. He introduced unbreakable cylinder records and eventually entered the disc market in 1912, though his company's reputation for signing lower-quality acts hurt sales. By the 1920s, radio was killing the business, and Edison stopped producing records in 1929. Edison entered motion pictures almost by accident. In 1888, he met photographer Edward Muybridge and decided to create an instrument that did for the eye what the phonograph did for the ear. He assigned the project to his assistant William K.L. Dixon, who developed the kinetograph camera and the kinetoscope viewer. Patent applications were filed in 1891. Kinetoscope parlors opened in 1894, and people paid to watch short films through peephole viewers. Edison built a studio at West Orange nicknamed the Black Maria and produced short films. He resisted developing a projector because he believed peephole viewers were more profitable. But when competitors developed projection systems, he lost his advantage. He eventually licensed a projector, renamed it the Vitascope, and marketed it under his name. Edison's motion picture business became a legal nightmare. He sued nearly every competitor for patent infringement and helped form the Motion Picture Patents Company in 1909, which required all filmmakers to license his technology. It was essentially a monopoly. Independent filmmakers fled to California, where enforcement was harder, helping establish Hollywood. In 1815, courts ruled the company an illegal monopoly and ordered it dissolved. By 1918, Edison exited the motion picture business entirely. He also pursued other ventures with mixed results. His ore milling company consumed years and money, but never became profitable. He tried promoting cement homes and furniture through the Edison Portland Cement Company, but the ideas were ahead of their time. In 1914, a fire destroyed 13 buildings at West Orange. Edison, now 67, immediately began rebuilding. The world had changed around Edison. The lone inventor was becoming obsolete, replaced by corporate research teams. Edison's final decades would test whether the man who changed everything could change himself. By 1911, Edison's companies had reorganized into Thomas A. Edison, Inc. The structure became more corporate and less about groundbreaking innovation. Edison kept some authority, but the company focused on maintaining market share rather than inventing the future. He became less involved in daily operations, feeling somewhat obsolete in the empire he had built. When World War I broke out, Edison advocated for military preparedness and believed technology would determine modern warfare. In 1915, the government named him head of the Naval Consulting Board. Edison took it seriously, working on submarine detection technology and submitting numerous proposals, but most were ignored or rejected. He grew frustrated, feeling that military bureaucrats didn't appreciate his contributions. The board did help establish a naval research laboratory in 1923, though several of Edison's recommendations were disregarded. During the 1920s, Edison's health deteriorated. He spent more time at Glenmont with Mina and less time at the laboratory. His relationship with his children remained distant, though his son Charles served as president of Thomas A. Edison, Inc. Edison still experimented at home, but the company board often refused his more ambitious projects. One obsession occupied his final years, finding a domestic source of rubber. He tested thousands of plants, eventually identifying goldenrod as promising. Though the project never reached commercial viability, Henry Ford, who idolized Edison, reconstructed his Menlo Park laboratory as a museum at Greenfield Village in Michigan. The recreation opened in October 1929 during the 50th anniversary of Edison's electric light, an event called Light's Golden Jubilee. Ford and General Electric hosted a massive celebration, with President Herbert Hoover, John D. Rockefeller Jr., Marie Curie, and Orville Wright attending. Edison, now 82 and failing, attended but couldn't stay for the entire ceremony. Edison's final 2 years were marked by declining health. On October 14, 1931, he lapsed into a coma at Glenmont and died 4 days later at 84. President Hoover suggested Americans dim their lights briefly in tribute. The man who lit up the world was gone, but the systems he built kept running without him. Edison left behind a complicated legacy. He held 1,093 patents and fundamentally shaped the 20th century. But he was also ruthless, willing to crush competitors and use fear tactics. His treatment of Tesla became legendary, and his personal life was marked by emotional distance and failed relationships. Edison died wealthy and famous, yet he spent his final years feeling underappreciated by a world that had moved beyond him. So, what do you think about Edison's legacy? Was he a visionary genius or a ruthless businessman who crushed his competition? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you found this story fascinating, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories from history. Until next time, stay curious.